Okay, Sunny. Okay, just for the sake of the video, this is filmed in an art class. There will be people talking and there might be some other noises. Don't get offended. If you do, you've got 30 seconds to get over it. Okay. Okay, so we are going to be doing a Hogshair painting, and we are doing blending, which means we're only going to blend in one direction. This is the palette that we're using. So here we've got Paints Grey, then we've got white, and she's mixed it here for us in a little sequence from very dark to very light, which is perfect. So this is what we're going to be using. I'm just going to put it on the side here. And this is my coffee, which I'm going to be drinking. Okay, so part of painting is, so we're going to be using Hogshairs. These are different Hogshairs. I think what we will do is we'll probably start with sort of a medium one, which is this one. And then generally what you want to do is you always want to start big brush, big area, small brush, small area. So this is sort of a medium-sized brush. This is a nice big one. So we can do that one as well. And then we're going to go to a smaller one. Now, obviously, having a flat brush and having a round brush will also give you different effects. But we'll try both of them. Okay, so there's no medium inside of this. There's no glycerine because you want to be able to create texture. Now, the thing with the Hogshair brush, this is a full bit, which means it is cut straight with a rounded edge, and this is just a normal flat. The longer the bristles are, if you look at, let's see, this one's got a very short bristles. So the shorter the bristles, the connection between the bristles and the whatever, I can't remember what you call that thing now, but the longer this piece is, the actual bristles, the more it's like a tongue that licks. The shorter the bristles is, the more scratchy it is. So each one gives a different effect. Okay, so now what I want to do is I also want to wash in here. So I've got a setup there with my object. I just want to wash in here in the object where my dark and my lighter. So I start with my darkest color, and I'm just gonna very thin. So obviously this is very watery. I'm gonna just wash in very loosely where I see my darks. So I'm not worried about the technique. I just want to wash where my darks are. So this is darker, very thin, quite watery. This is acrylic. You can do the same with oils. With oils, you'll thin it down with either paraffin or turpentine. I use paraffin thin with my oils because the turpentine is very harsh on your skin, and I just prefer the paraffin. It's not so hectic. So you can see I try and put in as much information as I can without actually starting to paint already. So I'm going to put my midtones in here. That's my base tones, and these are my lights. So that's fine for now. So now what I want to do is I want to pick up my color. I'm going to start with dark. You always want to start with dark. Dark gives you your depth. So I'm going to start with my darkest dark, which is this one. Pure color. If I put it here, you can see there's no water in it. And I start by putting, now look where I'm holding my brush. I'm not holding it there. If you hold it there, it's going to be too much. You want to hold it in the center. Yeah, position 2. So I'm putting it down. I'm all going to go in one direction, and I'm going to follow the shape here. So and you can see it's slightly dryish. Can you see there? So what I can also do is I can get rid of the excess paint, and then what's left on my brush gives me that slightly dryish effect. So can you see? I'm not going up, down, up. I'm going so short, short, short. Okay. So I do a few ones of these short, short, short. I use the same color. I'm going to add some in here where my dark is. There's a little bit of dark here. So now I'm going to go for my highlight. So you want to go base tone, highlight, mid-tone. Means darkest dark, lightest light, middle. So my lightest colors, I'm I'm not going to wash my brush, I'm going to wipe my brush. Now the reason for that is because I still want color on the brush. Whatever is on there will mix with what I'm putting on. So now I'm going to take my lightest color, test it on the side here, and I'm going to go, okay, there's light here. You can probably put a little bit more white with it just now. There's some light. Can you see I'm going over, I'm going in the same direction still. Now look, it's already becoming three-dimensional. Now I'm going to put, now where I have dark, I always have light next to it. So if I look there, there's my darkest dark. Can you see that's lighter there? If you don't see it, just remember, that's rule number 1 of Leonie's painting. There's always dark next to light. Rule number 2 is there's always hot next to cold.
Okay.
So if this is dark, that must be lighter. So I'm just for now going to put this, what's on my brush, so I can work away from me or towards me. It doesn't matter. The more paint I want to put down, the harder I push. The less paint I'm going to put down, the lighter I push. Now can you see by doing this, that stands out against each other. So where else can I, oh here I've got some light, and whatever, my brush is quite dry at the moment, so I'm pressing a bit harder, but that gives you again a different effect. So when I look here, that is lighter than that. So we're going to need to get a little bit more white. So I'm going to make this light here. So that must go a little bit darker, and there's some dark here, and there's some light at the top. Now I'm going for mid-tone. This is going to be my mid-tone. Test it. So there is a little bit darker there, because it must be darker than that. So now I start layering it over each other. Now when I layer over each other, I'm not covering, I'm not going more than once like this. I'm going once. Because I want that to, I want the undercolor. So it's like almost like weaving, like this. You've got the under thread throwing through the top thread. I mean, you do, don't you do needlework? So it's a bit like doing needlework. Like you want different threads to show, especially, you know, those blanket things that you throw over your bed, quilts. It's like making a quilt. You want all the different colors to show. You want to show it off. You want to be proud of it, you know. This is light. Have you got more white? So yeah, I'm going to add a little bit. So now I've got my mid-tone, I've got my highlight. I'm going to make my highlight a bit lighter. Again, I haven't cleaned my brush. I'm just adding, so there we go. And the nice thing about, oops, that was a little bit too much paint. Doesn't matter. Switch it out just now. So as I go, if you think you're painting light, paint lighter. The lighter you paint, the more effect you're going to get. Can you see now it's starting to, so here I've got light here. So sometimes I'll go this way, but then I'll change it. So I'm just putting the paint on, and then I'm changing the direction because I want to paint in one direction. Now here where you get all this, this is the technique with this brush, is the idea why we work with a Hogshair brush is because it gives such beautiful movement. So every stroke you give creates movement. Now can you see now it's starting to shine through each other. You can hear it go scratch, 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 scratch. So here I'm going to put a little bit darker because, and there's a highlight here. There's a little bit of a dark there. You can see the whole time what I'm doing is I'm working the background against the foreground. I'd rather make it too dark and then lighten it up again. It's better to do it that way. So if I put this dark in there, then I can lighten it. Can you see now it's starting to stand out, né? Okay, I'm going to go back to dark. I want more dark. I'm going to go for a smaller brush just now. And I want this down here to be very dark. And remember, you can work on the front of the brush, on the side of the brush, and the belly of the brush. So I can use the front of the brush, very upright like this, to really give me like a line work almost. Okay, so now, so you can see it already looking nice. So now I need to start looking at, okay, that's looking nice here. There's a dark edge right at the edge here. And that is a little bit darker there. So now that stands out more. So now I want a little bit more mid-tone, maybe a bit lighter. Now the more layers you put on, the nicer it's going to look. Now look at this mid-tone that I'm going to put over this. Now look at the under dark, how nice it looks when the under dark, sounds like I'm talking about the underworld, comes through. Can you see there? Look at the beautiful texture that it gives.
Absolutely.
Okay. So I can now go to, say, a smaller brush. I'm just going to put this one in the water. So let's say I want more detail. So I'm going to go for a round Hogshair, smaller. Now remember when you work with your Hogshair, to always put it into the water. So now I'm using the pure, my darkest paints grey. And this technique is actually called Grisaille. It's a traditional technique used by Titian, Caravaggio, all those guys, that gives you your undertone, your underlayers, and then gives you, so you're basically building the bone structure. This is like building, it's like anatomy. You're building the bone structure of the painting, and then on top of this, you're going to put color when you go to color later on. Now look at this, there's a line, can you see the line? It's actually very nice, and you can use that. You don't have to get rid of it. Okay, so I'm going to put a bit more detail in here. So now I'm starting, you see it's quite a lot of paint on there. So now I'm really starting to, I can really start building texture on top of each other. Now look there, can you see I can do small strokes, I can do little strokes, and that's how Rembrandt used to work. If you really look at his work up very close, you'll see there is little tiny strokes like this where different layers of colors were built up on top of each other, and it's almost three-dimensional, like it's like thick as bread at some places, if you could say that. You know what I mean? Look how much paint I've got on there. But the trick with painting, with any type of painting, is the lighter your hand is, the better. Now there's reflected light down here, so that's, remember it's dark against light, so this is gonna be lighter. So then it's gonna be dark above that. So now, so I've got my darkest dark that's coming through the slightly lighter version. Now look at this beautiful textures that I'm getting here. Isn't that pretty? It's like yummy. You want to eat it. Yeah. So now I can build around it again. So I would go with a bigger brush again, so that you can do a small brush all around, but I'd rather have the contrast between the big and the small brush. I'm going for my bigger brush again. So here I want that light even lighter. So now here is what, can you see that? There's no, and in I don't want a line there. Now look at the undercolor coming through, like that shadow is actually a soft. Now look at that, doesn't that look pretty? That's beautiful, yeah. Put my color on, so I know I want to soften this shadow as well here. So I'm just looking at dark and light. So if I want to create that light, I'm making it darker now. So the thing with this type of painting, you have to think ahead. So I want it darker so that I can make it lighter. I want it darker so that I can make it lighter. So I'm going to bring a little bit more dark in here. And even there where that, see there's hairs here? That's nice, that little bit of accidental hairs getting. And if there's hairs that get stuck in your painting, don't worry about it. Just leave it. It's going to build extra texture. So now I'm going to go over that dark and I'm going to light, because that dark is not as dark as this dark. And that dark is darker than that dark. So I need to lighten this dark a little bit. Now look, when I put that over there, doesn't that look lovely? And it gives it dimension. So you want dimension. So this is now a lighter one, and I go even lighter because this side for me is even lighter than the other side. But this is darker than this. And this is what you want. You want these textures. It's nice, huh? Okay, so here I want a little bit lighter. So now I'm deliberately taking the brush strokes in one direction. This is actually lighter here, so I'm going to make it lighter. Because there's light almost coming this way. And I know there's a contrast here. So very, very, very light. Now I can go back and say, okay, my dark's too dark there, I need to lighten it. So now I put the lighter color over the dark color. Can you see there? Doesn't it look lovely? Beautiful. And I want this soft edge here. Now I go back to my smaller brush again. Now I'm going to go detail again. So I don't make your brush mustn't be wet. So if you clean your brush, make sure your brush needs to be, through this whole process, your brush actually needs to be quite dry. So now I can go back and now I can really start. So now I'm going for the darkest dark again. But I know that dark's not as dark as that dark, so I'm going to lighten it up again. And where it's sort of broken like that, it's fine. You know, if you want a perfect painting, if you want super realism, you can do super realism, but that's not the point of painting, unless that's what you want. You want people to look and see that it has been painted. So now I put my lighter color, because this dark, so now I let the dark shine through. Doesn't that look lovely? And little tiny, very, very, very light marks. Very light. So it creates nice contrast now. Look how beautiful that looks. Doesn't that look lovely? Huh? So we can actually, so afterwards you can always go back and glaze again, which we'll do with another. So this one, I'll thicken this up nicely. So this is a little bit like working with impasto, except we're only working with one color. Impasto is basically the same technique as this. It is like impasto, it's just that we're doing it with one color and we're doing it in one direction. So we're following the shape of whatever we're doing is one direction. And that's how you do this technique. Beautiful. There you go. So now you can do the